This is the AEW Dynamite August 21, 2024 full show results video which takes place at Utilita Arena in Cardiff, Wales. The show opens with Toni Schiavone in the ring for a contract signing for the AEW TBS Championship match at All In. He introduces Dr. Britt Baker, DMD first and then Mercedes Moné, who of course is flanked by her bodyguard Camille. Mercedes speaks first and says that Baker is the past and she will forever be the future before she picks up a pen and signs the contract. Britt says that's cute, but she remembers when Moné hobbled in on crutches to watch her at last year's All In, and she also signs the contract. Moné mocks the crowd for doing Baker's DMD thing and says they only like her because she's a loser like they are and that's why on Sunday she won't lose. She says she put women's wrestling on the map and that's why she's all in a way that Britt doesn't have the guts to be. Baker says she's the gold standard and where Mercedes was one of four, she's one of one, and the baddest bitch on the block. But she got one thing right, she did admire Moné and she wanted to be her, and she walked so girls like Britt could run and be the first woman in the foundation of the company she's in right now and she made a difference. But that Mercedes went away, and she hopes she can find her again, and fast because when Baker wins the TBS Championship on Sunday, that's the girl she wants to be able to say that she beat. Britt stands up and says she's gonna follow the rules and she's not going to hit Mercedes, but this bitch is getting on her nerves, and she clocks Camille with the microphone. Camille staggers forward and lands in Moné's lap, and Britt takes them both out with a crossbody. Renee Paquette interviews Chris Jericho backstage and he admits something's been bothering him on his flight. Tommy Billington calls himself the Dynamite Kid, but what right does he have besides Dynamite Kid being his uncle? Is he as fast as Dynamite? As good as Dynamite? As angry and mean as Dynamite? As far as Chris is concerned, he hasn't earned the right to be on Dynamite, but this is his chance to prove it. And he hopes Hook is watching because what he does to Billington he'll do 7 times to Hook in Wembley Stadium. Then we saw a match between Chris Jericho versus Dynamite Kid Tommy Billington, and the result of this match was Chris Jericho defeated Dynamite Kid Tommy Billington by pinfall with a codebreaker. Post-match, Chris Jericho cuts a promo saying if Hook were here he'd tear him apart branch by branch, and then comes Hook. He gets right in the ring and squares up with Jericho. Chris starts to back down but it's a ruse and Big Bill blindsides him and chokeslams him. Then we saw a match between Saraya versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship, and the result of this match was Toni Storm defeated Saraya by pinfall with Storm Zero to retain the AEW Women's World Championship. The end of this match was very funny. Harley Cameron gets on the apron to run interference, Storm cuts her off with a lip lock, then she kisses Saraya as well, and immediately delivers the Storm Zero. Post-match, Mariah May attacks out of nowhere with the shoe and lays Toni out. Cradling the champion in her arms, soon Mariah dumps her and rides on the mat making ring angels briefly before leaving, Storm still down and out. Renee Paquette interviews the conglomeration and Mark Briscoe tells us the word of the day is proliferation and talks up their part in the week's action. Kyle O'Reilly puts on a bad accent and wants a match for them for Collision. Will Ospreay and MJF come into the ring to final face-off before the All In match? Ospreay gets on the mic and talks about his history wrestling here in Wales and says Sunday is about cleaning up MJF's mess, bang, and the dirt is gone. Max says people chant his name twice as loud as they do Will's. Ironically, Walla, who are YA, chant rings out behind him and Friedman calls Ospreay arrogant. Will tells him to look in the mirror and shove it up his bell end. Will talks about how AEW has catered to people who like pro wrestling, but then Max was world champion and everyone started laughing at him. Double clothesline was hilarious, but the joke went on too long and it all culminated at Wembley because nobody talked about the main event as an epic clash between two of the best. They talked about two friends jerking each other off. Between the two of them, he shares that when MJF was champion Tony Khan told him to put on a good match because he couldn't count on his world champion. They're meant to cater to the fans and to their voices, and this isn't just about restoring the international championship, it's about restoring the feeling, and bruv, he is the feeling. Max tells him he got one thing right, he doesn't care about catering to these meaningless people and the only thing that he cares about is what Americans do best, winning. What's sad though is he actually believed that four-eyed curly-haired dork Tony Khan when he told him the company would be safe in Will's hands. Who the hell is he? Hall of Famers unanimously agree that MJF is the best wrestler in the world today, so who told Will that he's the best? Them? The fans? Is he serious? That's so sad. These people know nothing about pro wrestling, and that's true because they like Ospreay's matches. So be the feeling all you want, because Friedman is facts, and the fact is he's the youngest and longest reigning AEW World Champion of all time. As long as he's here, he's the ace and can only hope for second place, and the face is that the only way we can beat him is with the Tiger Driver 91, and he's not man enough to pull the trigger. So he and his Whittle fans can feel all they want, but he's the facts and facts don't care about feelings. Ospreay counters by saying go around the world, go to Japan, go to America, ask who's best, and they all say Will Ospreay. It took Max 4 years to win them over, it took him 4 beats of his music to win them over. MJF screams in his face that they loved him until Will came and ruined everything for him, but quickly collects himself and says he's right, he can't be like Ospreay, a role model to fans the world over, a great husband and father and professional wrestler. He fell short in every way of being the face of AEW, where Will has manned up and done it, congratulations. However, before the show tonight, he spent some time with Ospreay's wife and so-called kid, and he says so-called because Will's wife was in a poly relationship and had a child with another man who Ospreay is now raising as his own, and that's admirable, but he's got one more fact for Feely Boy. After talking to his wife, he's got a feeling the next kid she has won't be Will's either, and Ospreay turns to Schiavone and asks if he's got Tony Khan in his ear and how much is the fine to clock MJF in the ear right now. Tony answers that it's 100,000 pounds sterling, or 127,000 American dollars. Will steps away before shouting that it's worth it and turning to beat the shit out of Maxwell Jacob Friedman before security rushes the ring. Security cleared out, Ospreay bleeding from the head after MJF got his licks back in, and he hits the brainbuster to boot, counting a Mach 3 for the camera. Max goes to leave but walks back over, undertook applied, but here comes security again before he can hit the Tiger Driver, and MJF leaves holding the title high while Will bleeds and gets checked on by medics. Back from the commercial, Renee Paquette interviews Hangman Adam Page as he leaves the building. He's in the casino match and tells everyone that if they get in his way he'll run them over. He flags Evil Uno down and they talk about something I can't catch because my cable goes choppy, but Hanger blasts him with a chair to make his point that he doesn't care who you are, get in his way and he runs you over. Then we saw a match between Claudio Castagnoli versus Kazuchika Okada for the AEW Continental Championship, and the result of this match was ended in a 20-minute time limit draw. The Young Bucks come to ringside to ask who wants 5 more minutes, but of course, they don't actually want to give the match an extension. As EVPs, of course, they are sticklers for the rules, and Claudio made a great effort, but maybe next time. They ask Castagnoli to leave the ring before they remove him from the ring, but he puts his mouthguard back in and he's ready to fight, but entrances for our next match save him. Then we saw a match between Darby Allin and FTR versus the Elite, Jack Perry, Matthew Jackson, and Nicholas Jackson, and the result of this match was Darby Allin and FTR won the match by pinfall with a coffin drop from Allin on one of the Jackson boys. The Acclaimed make their entrance and cut a promo, and Max Caster calls FTR court jesters and the Young Bucks princesses while he and Anthony Bowens are kings. On Sunday it's nut up or shut up time, but tonight they have nothing left to prove. Renee Paquette is backstage with Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay, and Danielson gives Will a simple pep talk, do it. Back from the commercial, Nigel McGuinness is in the ring to preside over a face-to-face for our world title match. He puts Shane, Swerve, Strickland over big, as befits the AEW World Champion, and Strickland makes his entrance and gets in the ring. Nigel holds before introducing Danielson and shakes Shane's hand and tells him it's an honor he's here, and says it's no secret Bryan's in a bad way physically, whereas Strickland is in the best shape of his life. Swerve says he's the most dangerous man in AEW, and it's because of the pain he endures and inflicts and the people he's beaten to get to the world title and to keep it. Hangman Page, twice now, Jay White, Konosuke Takeshita, Samoa Joe, Claudio Castagnoli, Christian Cage, and the man that put Bryan Danielson's neck in jeopardy, Will Ospreay. He's going to dissect Bryan head to toe, with purpose and menace, scientifically. Strickland says he can't help but feel disrespected because Danielson keeps saying he's ready for retirement. That's a slap in his face as the world champion. He's not taking that from him, he's the one that's going to take from Bryan, and he's going to do something to make sure he's not capable of wrestling again. And if one day Bryan does feel like he can do it again after he's done with him, guess where Swerve is going to be? The American Dragon is here and he's pissed off. Delivered Buseiku Ni sends Swerve packing. Danielson says maybe he's confused and maybe a lot of people are confused because he doesn't come out here for 20 minutes every week to talk and talk and talk, but he knows the truth. He knows who he is, and lots of people throw it around like it's some kind of catchphrase, but it's the truth for him. He's the best wrestler in the world and he has been for the last 20 years. You're gonna retire him? You're gonna cripple him in front of his daughter? On Sunday, in Wembley, in front of his fans who have paid to see him for the last 20 years, in front of his peers who have traveled with him for 25 years? You're going to have to kill him because he will leave his soul in this ring. There's only one question left. Can Bryan Danielson, the American fucking dragon, beat Shane Strickland for the AEW World Championship? Yes, chants ring out and Bryan simply says they know the answer and so does Swerve and the show goes off the air.